Hi everyone, shameless plug here for the upcoming February 2023 British Shooting Show, 17th to the 19th of February. I'm hoping to be there myself Friday the 17th and Saturday the 18th of February. Really looking forward to it, and I'm also looking forward, of course, to meeting lots of you and checking out all the new gear. And one bonus this year, as well as a free show guide, while stocks last, of course. There's also car parking included free within your ticket price this year. So that's brilliant. Hi there everyone, another 100% honest and independent video coming to you from Russ Douglas 222. I just wanted to stress this is independent. I own all of this kit, apart from a few moderators I'm currently reviewing. These opinions are all mine, and I wanted to bring you first-hand experiences. Dear YouTube, this involves no gun modification. This is purely an educational video, sharing my own experiences and tips of tuning this rather excellent UK FAC 177 FX Maverick Compact. We've got the compact bottle, 500ml barrel, which stops about an inch short of the end of the shroud, so you do need a moderator. My PARD AAS LRF, one of the two I've got, and it's fitted as usual with the Eagle Vision 108 MOA mount. Once it's zeroed, your reticle's nice and central on the screen. Brilliant. This video accompanies my December 22 Airgun World article. That'll be in the shops in about 3 weeks. Also, I've got accompanying this article and this video a Flickr album already populated with photos. I will be adding more photos to it shortly. There'll be a link in the video description below. So just a refresher for those unaware, I've had this Maverick Compact it's nearly a year. I love it, but I have had a few issues with it. It is supposed to be consistent feet per second velocity wise at both high power and low power. And I bought this to use more often at low power in and around barns and farm buildings than at high power. Although I will also be running it at high power, including reviewing various different pellets, designs and weights and slugs to see if they fight the wind effectively for pest control. So I had a few issues early on. And thank you very much to all the guys at Sportsman Gun Centre for their help. Both the FX team and George and the PARD team and Abu, thank you very much. Answering lots of queries and assisting me a few times when I've needed help. This fella's been back twice just because it was inconsistent. And then the last time it had a leak and it was inconsistent. And Jonathan worked his wonders, and it was basically just a bust O-ring which led to a leak and also the inconsistencies. So when he replaced the O-ring to fix the leak, it fixed the inconsistencies as well. Perfect. You've seen my recent video a few weeks ago when I joined Stuart and Robin Foxer for some manic ratting action. One hell of a video, and Robin's two videos are pretty action-packed for those who like their pest control ratting action. After that excursion, I did some thorough chrono checks. After it had been fixed, this was actually running about more like 15 foot-pounds than 13. It's UK FAC because it's over 12 foot-pounds. Being up in here in Scotland, I have both an airgun license and an FAC, so both apply to this rifle. I wanted to tune it down to sub-12 for use at Grampian Air Rifle Club, GAR, that I attend every week. I watched a video by Matt Dubber, Air Arms Hunting SA. Hi Matt. Matt, as you know, they bring out lots of great videos on tuning, making them the best of these FX rifles. I'll put a link down below to Matt's video, which was very informative, very helpful on making the most of tuning the Maverick's dual regs. And as you'll know, anyone who's up on this already, you have a bottle pressure. Reg 1, which is in the bottle fixing, reduces the pressure to something slightly safer so that Reg 2 has less pressure to deal with, and it just prolongs the reg life and aids consistency, which is great. I followed everything that Matt had done. Interestingly, to turn the power down, you basically dismount the bottle, bleed the system, and every time it takes me 6 or 7 shots for the action to depressurize and the hiss eventually as the air comes out of the bottle mounting. And then you screw the reg in. This obvious brass Allen fitting on the right hand side of the action. You screw that in, then you refit the bottle to repressurize the system, and then while keeping an eye on the reg gauge here, you gently, very slightly, you back off this Reg 2 adjuster by less than half a turn maybe. As soon as you hear a hiss, you want to be keeping an eye on this, and I've got this currently set at 11.3 foot-pounds, which is 30 feet per second below the legal limit. Although I have an FAC just for use at the club, which is sub-12, and this gauge sitting smidgen below 50 bar, and it is a very small gauge. It's about 22 mil diameter, but there's scarcely 2 or 3 mil between indicator that shows 50 bar and the one that shows 100 bar. So not a lot of scope for precise adjustment via the reg gauge. I went through that procedure I've just described to you, repressurized the system up to 50 bar, chronoed it, and it came out, the first time it chronoed at 798 feet per second average, and the legal limit is 799 with the 8.44 grain JSBs, so it really was as high a legal limit air gun as you can get. Next, while it was on exactly 12 foot-pounds, or 11.97 or something daft, I also tried 2 heavier types of JSB pellets, 10.34 grain exacts and 10.34 grain Hades. Out of interest, I also tried the 13 grain H&N hollow point slugs, kindly supplied by Claire at John Rothery Wholesales. Thank you, Claire and the team. So I'll put the information on screen here, and it's in my article regarding what velocities I got out of those other 3 pellets and slugs. And interestingly, the 2 10.34 grain pellet types were slightly higher energy, just over 12 foot-pounds. So perhaps they're a slightly tighter fit in the barrel, in the bore, and a better gas seal with a skirt, despite them all being 4.52 millimeters on the tins. Who knows? So next step, I went out to Grand Prix Rifle Club, zeroed this fella first roughly at 17 meters and then out at 30 for pest control use, because it's 177, and incidentally, on a sort of 6-inch square target, my first group was low and right, and rather than adjust and have the reticle a mile out, I loosened the top pin on the Eagle Vision Cam adjustable rail, loosened the rear locking screw, adjusted the rear of the scope slightly to the right, tightened everything back up. That brought the group cock on in line below the target bull, and then moved out to 30 meters. Thanks Callum for moving the targets for me as well to reduce the ceasefire time at the range. And then I finally just adjusted via the scopes X and Y, fine-tuned it into a group. I have to say the group was about 3/4 of an inch. I'll pop a photo up. So a bit bigger than I'd like. The barrel's probably due for a clean. I have found these days that my FX rifles, the barrels need cleaning more often than my old FX Wildcat used to. I don't know if it's the barrel design or if it's something in the properties of the lead in the JSB pellets these days, but the barrels definitely need cleaning more often than they used to, because the groups start to open out and the cleaning cloths are thick and black when they come out. So just a bit of information for you. Incidentally, the PARD AAS LRF is now working fine. After my ratting escapades, when the LRF had a few issues with the ballistic calculator not always working, I sent the scope down to Sportsman Gun Centre, and sure enough, there was a fault in the LRF module, so they replaced the LRF module, and it's now working fine. So the rifle was cock on exactly sub 12 foot-pounds, zeroed at 30 meters, and next I thought, right, the power wheel, how will that react between number 1, which is low power, and 7, which is the highest power? Spot my no expense spared rear sling attachment point here via a heavy duty tie wrap, and you'll see the rear power adjuster on the Maverick just above that tie wrap. It's showing 7 here, which means it's on power level 3, and basically when you're on power showing an inverted 5, you're on 1, and when you're showing 3, you're on 7, which is high power. So pretty easy to get the hang of it once you use it regularly. And I prepared a nice table for my Airgun World article. Epic fail, because basically there was next to no difference at 50 bar. So had a chat to the FX team at Sportsman, and lo and behold, they explained when the working pressure in this power plenum, which is essentially the reservoir from which air is discharged via the hammer in the valve, when the pressure's too low for sort of FAC use, if you like, then the adjuster won't actually get any more extra power, because as you turn it from 1 up to 7, it increases the hammer force on the valve, but there's no extra energy to come out. So there's no extra power. So I did some tests, 50, 60, 75. So at 75 bar, there was less than 50 feet per second difference between low power on 1 and high power on 7. Then as I increased as I slowly adjusted reg 2, and it wasn't until I got to 90 bar, suddenly there's a 200 feet per second velocity difference between power level 1 and 7. Obviously 6 incremental points in between the two as well. So lots of scope for fine tuning there. And as you'll see from Matt Dubber's video, you have to start upping reg 1 if you want to up reg 2 pressure significantly, for example, to go on to higher power for slugs, because you need approximately 35 bar pressure difference between reg 1 and reg 2. Certainly between 20 and 70. So they talk about 35, but between 20 and 70. And when you get to the higher power levels, you're obviously going to need to raise reg 1. So there's a difference between the two reg. And for your information, when I got to 100 bar, that's as high as I went with reg 2 on high power, on 7 on the adjuster, I got 901 feet per second or 23.4 foot-pounds with the 13 grain H&N slugs. So that's the point at which I would be looking to raise reg 1 pressure so that I can start tweaking reg 2 pressure a bit higher and look for between 950 and 1,000 perhaps feet per second with the slugs, hopefully to find the sweet spot of accuracy. Although of course this rifle only having a 500mm barrel, you're not going to get the sort of efficiency out of the powerful system for slugs as you would on something like the Impact Sniper M3. But as long as you're aware of that, then it's going to be less efficient, but you're still going to get a fair amount of shots out of each charge of this bottle because of the dual reg system. But thanks to John Rothery, as well as the 13 grain H&N slugs, I've also got the 16 grain and the 20 grain slug to test. So I'm really looking forward to testing all three, seeing how they fare with the Parnes ballistic calculator, see how accurate they are at the drop at various longer ranges, and also see how well the slugs fight the wind, because the higher ballistic coefficient BC values should definitely fight the wind better. I'll get back to you with that. After all that testing, I repeated the procedure I described near the start, got this fella back down to 12 foot-pounds, and the second time round, with the naked eye, the gauge was at the same point, just below 50 bar. This time it was 11.3 foot-pounds, so 775 feet per second, I think. It's only 20 feet per second difference, but quite difficult to get the reg 2 pressure to exactly the same spot, because it's a tiny amount of adjustment, almost indiscernible, you know. Right, at this point, from Matt Dubber's video, he had mentioned something you've got to watch out for. When the power plenum is only running about 50 bar, well, he was talking about higher pressures, maybe even 80 bar, but he said certainly when it's running around about 50 bar, UK 12 foot-pound levels of power, he said you can get circumstances where the reg 2 is not actually able to detect the pressure drop from a shot. So reg 2 might not top up the power plenum from after one shot ready for the next, and it might only top up the plenum every 2 or 3 shots. Now you don't want one shot to be 12 foot-pounds or whatever, and the next shot to be less, and your shot falls low and you might miss your target if you're target shooting, or you might injure or wound the vermin you're aiming for. You need clean kills after all. So I thought, right, I'd better check this and see if it's happening. So I put 4 mags of JSB exacts through this fella, over the chrono here, into my pellet trap. 1 pellet that wasn't registered, but 87 shots out of 88, registered by the chrono. I'll put the consistency shot spread on the screen here. It was absolutely spot on, 88 shots, and it was 16 feet per second, I think, from memory. Very good indeed. That chrono consistency, together with the hiss of the reg, topping up the power plenum after every single shot, that basically meant that this possible issue that Matt had mentioned isn't happening, at least not on this rifle at this setup. So I was confident that my 30-meter zero would still be valid, although I do a zero check, of course, before taking on live prey again. Interesting, I had the side lever all the way back. The mag had jammed, it wouldn't come out. So there's the errant pellet that caused it. So having had this happen before, I removed 2 top screws, took the cheap piece off, slackened off the 2 barrel clamp grub screws, slid the barrel forward, as you can see, slightly. Pellet fell out, mag is now removable. And also, while I'm here, I'm going to rotate this round and see if I can just eyeball whether this barrel has a port for pellets and a port for slugs. And that slight dark mark here tells me where the grub screws have been pressing on the barrel there, and also even clearer here. So I know to keep those two at top dead center when I slide the barrel back into the breech, because I'm gonna rotate it so I can see underneath to see if I can see the pellet or the slug inlet hole for the barrel. And behold, there is only one, and also you can see the slight keyway there where the barrel keys in, so you can't have it misaligned, but that looks like it's only the one air port for the barrel, so it's not got a specific slug setup. Interestingly, I've always wondered why there's a hole in the end of the what I took to be the barrel here, but in actual fact this fella unscrews, so the hole is actually so you can slide an Allen key in there and pop it in tightly to then insert the moderator. So that's good to know. And then basically to round off this the article, I did some pre-dawn pest control on both of my local permissions. I cracked open the barn doors, used my basic cheap thermal spotter. Bruce has still got the Griffin GH35L that we're reviewing for a height micro that will be returning soon once we've done our man cave review of it. So I used my old Pulsar XQ30V spotter that I bought from Scott Country International years ago. I spotted a few rats, knew from experience they were 37, 38 meters away because they were in opposite corners. Happily recording on the pad, so I thought. I shot sort of 4 or 5 out of these sort of 6 rats I think I saw, including some which were very small, so I was very happy to be doing headshots on rats at that sort of range. The scope and the rifle were doing the business. Got home after visiting the other farm and clearing out a few ferals, and when I download the memory card, there's no footage of the rats. So one hiccup on this pad still is with the 0820 firmware, which is currently running, you should be able to press the button during recording session, put it on standby, and then when you press the power button again, it wakes it and it instantly resumes recording with a fresh file. So it starts at 00. That's what it had done when I'd installed the firmware, but that particular morning, a few days ago, it obviously didn't record. I was so busy watching my balance, muddy ground, and then in the barn with grain on the concrete floor, quite slippery, and everything else. I hadn't noticed in the top left corner that the pad wasn't recording. So I've no footage of those rats for you. Next up, tuning wise for this rifle, I'll follow Matt Dubber's instructions, suss out via the reg gauge what reg 1 is set to, and then I'll be doing slug testing after adjusting reg 2 to slightly higher power levels. Don't forget, for all things night vision related, keep an eye on the UK Night Vision forum, night vision section and the thermal section. I try and answer people's queries as quickly as I can. So I hope that was interesting for you all. Thanks very much for watching. Take care and enjoy your shooting. In addition to the coming soon items on this list, as usual at the end of the video, there's another goodie coming soon, which I'm not going to name yet. I'm not going to jinx it. Bruce and I will hopefully be doing a thorough review of some new night vision gear very soon. I'll start giving you a teaser anyway via Instagram and Facebook once I know for sure that we're reviewing it. See you soon.